So number one, it does a solve for X, but for solving for the W variable. So you would start by subtracting 5 from both sides. If I put our phones and stuff up, and let's participate so that you at least get extra practice for the The 26 minus 5 is 21. To get W by itself, what do we do? Divide. How about 10? So W equals 3. Solve for Y. Add 3, yeah. Flip it and multiply by the reciprocal. Good job. 6 over 5. Y equals 3 out of 10. So we're going to cross reduce. We have 2 times 6 is 12. Those of you that did it, you feeling good? You can do that. You're ready for 2 problems for sure. It's very similar. I mean, it may just be different numbers, but you do the same steps. So. All right. Number 3. We have variables on both sides and constants on both, so you can move in any direction. I'm choosing to move my 15x to the left. So when I subtract, it's 15 again. And then I add 27. This is my last step. 5 times 15. 5. X equals. You'll have an equation on there that has parentheses in it. So if you know that in number 4, when you look at it, the first thing you have to do is get rid of the parentheses. The very first thing, never be tempted to do anything else first. Like this one right here, commonly some people want to add 5 plus 4 first, and that would be a wrong first step. Okay, I'm not going to count the whole thing wrong, but that would be a wrong first step. You need to go straight to just distributing this 4. 5y minus 4 equals 5, then we can distribute. So 4 times y is 4y, and 4 times a negative 3 is a negative 12.
Wouldn't it be a negative 4y? It's a 5 minus 4.
Oh, it's a plus sign. Is there a plus sign there? Check it.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, because I kind of wrote over it.
Yeah,
Kind of looks like a negative. And then really, before you start moving anything around, we need to combine those. 5y minus 4 equals, I'm going to write 4y down, and then 5 minus 12, negative 7. Excuse me. So you could go any direction. Probably you'd want to move this 4y over here anyways, right? So you can keep it positive. Let's subtract 4y. So 1y minus 4 equals negative 7. Then we add 4. So y equals negative 3. So on the test, you will have a couple of these translates and solves, so make sure you do both. Read those instructions and don't forget and solve. But letter A says the product of 7 and a number is negative 49. So product means you're multiplying, and you're going to multiply 7 and a number. You can put any letter for me. I think WebAssign wanted N's or X's. I can't remember. I think they want X and I put N's. Just because I like to think any number for the letter N. Then we have is your equal sign, negative 49. I know it's been a while since you did those, so maybe you don't remember what letter they required, but Then we just divide by 7 to solve, so we could say we set up our equation. And n equals a -7. B says 3 times the sum of a number and 6 is 6. So if it says 3 times and sum, if you have these two words that close together, just separated by the word the, that's where you're gonna have a parentheses, for sure. And sum is gonna be put where the word and is. So 3 times the sum of a number, so like n plus 6 or x plus 6 equals 6. Distribute. 3 times n is 3n. 3 times 6 is 18. So let's subtract 18. 3n equals a -12. That's a 2. 5 by 3, so n equals -4. While you're writing, I think there's like 20 questions on the test. But some of them are really fast to solve. Like you may just divide to get an answer. You may just add or subtract something over to get an answer. And you can probably just roll right through a lot of them pretty quick. But I will be here at 10:15 or maybe a little bit early if you think you need a little extra time, so you're done by 11:20, okay? Just give a little extra time. Because Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes always take a little more time on testing days. Question. You have a fraction equaling a fraction. This is where you could do that cross products. Do you remember that? Multiplying like a butterfly. You can take this times that. So 2 times 20 minus 2x. And then this times this. So we put an equal sign. And we do 5 times 4x plus 7. Did we go over it like that?
Yeah, but we also never would have been kind of like the.
Okay, I wanted to make sure. So you can do it the other way. You could multiply both sides by 10. I think on our quiz, we hadn't gone over it this way yet. So like some people were multiplying this side by 2s and 5s. So we talked about that. I went over that with you, didn't I? So just want to make sure you don't do that. So once we set that up, we'll distribute. Did I distribute right? Okay. Okay, so you can move stuff over any direction. It doesn't matter what. I know I'm just a creature of habit, so I move my x's to the left. So 40 minus 24x equals 35. Then we subtract 40. Negative 24x equals a -5. We divide by a -24. Can't really reduce that. Remember, leave your answers as fractions. We can fix the negatives though. Oh. 17, I couldn't do that because you have two separate fractions over here. We have to multiply everything times 12. And the reason we picked 12 is because 4 goes into 12 and 6 goes into 12, right? So since 12, they can all divide into that, that's why we choose that number. Okay, so we're gonna multiply everything times 12. And if you can write it like that and be organized enough, you won't have to rewrite it. Sometimes I do rewrite it, because I get unorganized very easy. When I teach, I'm organized, but when I'm doing my math myself, I'm not. I'm kind of everywhere. But it does help a lot being organized. So 4 should divide up into 12, and we're gonna cross it out, and that's gonna be a 3. So what that means is you're gonna be taking 3 times that binomial. So we'll write it like that, 3 times 2x minus 5. Then you have a minus sign. And we need to think 6 goes up into 12, how many times? 2. So you're gonna be taking 2 times these two things. So I like to write the 2 on the left. This was one of the problems we had on our quiz, like this exact one. And so if you got it wrong, might have already went back over it. Hopefully you did on that feedback I gave you. What do we do after we get rid of those fractions now? Distribute. So a negative times a negative, this is where a lot of people made some mistakes on the quiz. You need to think you're taking that negative with it when you distribute. So negative times a negative is a positive 2x. So a lot of people like put a negative, which made that 4, so it made your answer just a little bit different. So just be careful of all those things. Signs can get us. So we have 8x. And a negative 21. What do I do next? Or at 21. I have to come up over here. So I have 8x equals 11 and 21 is 32. My last step. X equals. For some people, if you had a 4, you were dividing by 4, so your answer is just a little off on that quiz. So 8 and 9 they look like they're exactly the same. I did that on purpose because I need you to make sure that you're isolating what it asks for, okay, to show you the difference between the two things that will happen. So if I'm solving for x, that means all I have to do here is subtract 4y. So x equals, and you can write 16 minus 4y. Like, I'm not going to count that wrong. I'm in the habit of writing my variable before my constant. But you could have written x equals 16 minus 4y. It's the same thing as long as you have the right sign in front of those numbers. Yes.
On 7, I multiplied by 24 and I still got 4, so does it matter if?
So no, it wouldn't matter. It's just that you have bigger numbers. Not a big deal. Yeah. In fact, I actually gave a quiz recently in STEM and kind of did the same thing. It's not that problem, but I multiplied by a bigger number than I needed to. Sometimes our brains just go to that. So you got rid of the denominator and that was fine. Yeah. If we're solving for y, that means we need to move the x. So we would subtract x. 4y equals negative x plus 16, or 16 minus x. And then each thing needs to be divided by 4 because this can simplify, right? So one part stays kind of like a fraction. You could call it 1 over 4 if you want. Sometimes that makes more sense to us. Or you can keep it as x over 4. It means the very same thing, even though it looks like it's different. And then plus 16 divided by 4 is 4. because we've already done that, just to make sure you guys remember, other literal equations, because I did put another one in there. I want to go over just another one. I'm gonna change the review. So if you did those, that's great, but I'm not gonna do it with you. I think you will appreciate reviewing other literal equations. So like if you have P equals R minus C over N. If I were to say, let's solve for R, what would I do first in this one? Yeah, you're right, multiply by N. You're right. Because if that's like a fraction, it's like divided by N, just like up here, we want to get rid of the fraction, even though it's like a letter. We want to do that first. So I have NP equals R minus C. So this is what we're trying to get by itself. What do I do to get it by itself? Let's add C. So I'm gonna write it right here, NP plus C equals R. This will be kind of one of those other literal equations on there, not just the X's and Y's. And it will be similar to some that you have on your notes. You may not solve for R, but you may solve for C or something like that. But if you look at it, it'll help you. We do have the inequalities. So I know moving X to the right would keep X positive, but because it makes more sense in graphing to keep X on the left, I like to keep it on the left. You can keep it on the right, it's just in the end, you would have to mirror it, and which is fine. So I'm subtract 5x, so I have a negative 2x plus 2 is greater than negative 4. We're going to subtract 2 from both sides, so I have negative 2x is greater than negative 6. Divide by negative 2, so x is, I have to flip that 9 because of the negative right here. You're divided by negative, so it would be a less than positive 3. So I really, if it says right in set builder and interval notation, to me, this is fine for set builder. If you go ahead and do all the extra stuff, I'm fine with that too. But I do need to see my interval notation like we've done. Okay. So, huh? Yes, I could. Sorry. There you go. You tell me sometimes. Forget to look over here and there. Remember, set builder just look like this. If you just think it's not incredibly necessary, so but I would take this for that part. But interval notation, if X is less than 3, you'd be pointing to the left and going to what? Negative infinity. So remember, your interval notation comes from that. It didn't say graph, but I have a number line on the test for you. So it's like almost forcing you to graph. That one might even say graph, I can't remember. But you need to graph it to help you write your interval notation. Just 2 more. Early night. Sleep. Okay, number 11. So we have some compound inequality. We would divide by 5 here, so x would be greater than negative 2. Here we're subtracting 2. The negative 2x is greater than negative 8. distracting to all the other students here. Divide by -2, so what do I have to do with that symbol? Flip it. So for interval notation, if x is greater than -2, we point that way. If x is less than 4, we point that way. So remember your ands share solutions, so they share all this space in between. So interval notation would look like this. Remember set builder, you would have one sentence. That's what I'm going to be looking for the set builder. So what that means is, you always have x in the middle, and the smaller number is over here, always on the left, and the larger number is on the right. And you should always have less than symbols. I mean, it should always read less than or equal to, whatever it is. And just to explain why again, see how if you forget this side of it, it does match that inequality. This one would be mirrored because it's mirrored, right? Like this is saying x is greater than -2, which means -2 is then less than x. If you put the straight line and the x and the squigglies, that's extra and I love it, but you don't have to. Do you have any question about it?
How do you know if there's going to be 2 sentences for a set builder?
So, and will always be one sentence.
Okay.
The word and kind of tells you that.
So or is
The or is 2 sentences. But also the graph tells you that. If they're sharing solutions, that can be one sentence. But if they're going opposite, that's where the ors are, that's 2. So final, remember by either the graph or the word. This one you're dividing by 2, so x is less than 5. And here you're subtracting 1, x is greater than 9. I can't subtract. I do that stuff quite a bit. So if x, let's do or equal to just because, so that we can practice that. But if it was that x is less than or equal to, remember those would be hard brackets. I know your original thing didn't have the or equal to, just reminding you of that as extra review. And x is greater than or equal to, we go to a positive infinity. So when there's a gap, you have that u. Remember, if you haven't done that topic 8 homework, that you have to use the tool from WebAssign to do the u, not your pieces. So this for interval notation builds down straight left to right. So your negative infinity always has a soft bracket. Because 5, I changed it. If I put an or equal to, that would make that a hard bracket. Just kind of wanted to go over a hard bracket again. If you use parentheses because that was the actual problem, then you were right.
I was so confused. I thought I didn't know.
No, I just changed it to review the hard bracket. I need to change it in the future so that we always have one.
And why are these soft brackets?
Because you can't attain it. So the hard brackets are saying I can include 5. Okay. I could include 8. But you can't include infinity because you can't like hold on to that thing. And this one would be 2 sentences, so you could just put the word or between them, and I would take that for my set builder. The only other thing I would encourage you to review is, remember when we did those proportions? Those application problems. I do have one of those on the test. I didn't have it on the review, so I was just gonna let you know to look at that. I actually pulled one of the questions from your notes, but changed the numbers. So if you look at your notes and those proportion word problems, you're gonna be just fine and ready to do it. Okay. Any questions?